We've got a very messy weather picture, and some of it does include snow and temperatures that are dramatically cooler, especially across the northern Rocky Mountain states. A lot of this looks like rain, but in fact it is snowfall. Bismarck, Huron, Sioux City, Iowa, Valentine, Nebraska, picking up some light snowfall. It is making hazardous driving conditions, but in a place right around Alliance, Nebraska, some freezing rain be reported. Chicago's picking up some rainfall. Lexington, Kentucky, some rainfall. Kansas City and Biloxi, all rain. But some of the wind chill factors in the Dakotas down into the single digits, like Pierre, South Dakota. The wind chill factor just about an hour ago was 8 degrees. Look at these readings. 30s across Canadian border states into Ontario and Quebec. Big news coming out of there for CNN World News coming up. Denver, 53. Los Angeles, 74. Some current temperatures outside. Look at this. 60 degrees in Salt Lake City, and it's 20 degrees in Bozeman, Montana. That's where the frontal system is, and the difference will be temperatures dropping over the next several days in eastern sections of Washington. Watch out, you've got a blast of cold air in your forecast coming up for Wednesday. CNN World News is next.
In Quebec, the votes are coming in. Will they stay or will they go? We'll update the referendum for secession from Canada.
Hundreds of thousands of world news. The issue divided the country. The vote could force the breakup of a nation. Just over 2 hours ago, polls closed in Quebec, where voters are deciding whether or not to secede from Canada. Here are the initial results to this hour. With 85% of the votes counted, 49.7% are in favor of Quebec becoming a sovereign nation. However, the balance has tipped the other way very slightly over the last few hours. 50.3% are against. Separatists say it is the only way to preserve Quebec's distinct culture and language. CNN's Ed Garston has the latest.
Even before the polls opened, anxious Quebecois queued up in long lines to vote yes or no on sovereignty. At long last, the weeks of raucous rallies and bitter rhetoric would be over. Decision day was here.
I've been waiting for that moment all my life.
I think people are excited. They're very tense and worried, but also the mood has become very emotional.
One of the things it is the either the breakup or the unity of the country.
The man with perhaps the most to lose if Quebec votes for sovereignty is Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. He cast his vote with the knowledge that losing the fight to prevent his home province from pulling out could spell an end to his two-year regime. Daniel Johnson, an anti-separatist Quebecer, has been Chrétien's point man in the campaign. He looked confident as he left the polls. On the other side, Quebec Premier Jacques Parizeau dropped his ballot in the box with a smile on his face and predicted many more would vote the same as him.
Le Québec va gagner.
I think today Quebec will win. I believe so profoundly. I ask all Quebecers to vote. We all have a big responsibility today.
The man who took on the responsibility of wooing the yes vote, the emotional lightning rod and soul of the campaign, Lucien Bouchard, enthusiastically cast his ballot too. With polls predicting a dead heat, every vote is taking on added importance.
The last time Quebec held a referendum on independence 15 years ago, the separatists lost badly by 20%. But this time around, the final polls say the vote is simply too close to call. Ed Garston, CNN, Montreal, Canada.
And we'd also like to welcome our international viewers joining us on CNN International. And Ed Garston is now joining us by telephone from Montreal. Ed, how's the mood right now?
We've been able to watch feeds here at the International Broadcast Center from both the yes and no gathering spots. It's been amazing just as the vote has swung, so of course as the emotions. At one moment, the party rooms are jubilant, people are cheering, people are singing. Then as soon as it swings the other way, they immediately fall silent. And something tells me that they're going to be going through these emotional swings most of the night.
Well, speaking of the emotion, Ed, has this been a campaign based primarily on passion over reason?
Funny you should ask that, because at first it seemed a very dry campaign, but once Lucien Bouchard took over from Quebec's premier Jacques Parizeau, things started to change. He's very charismatic, very fiery, gives what they say the best speech around, and as soon as he took over the yes campaign, things started swinging their way. Very passionate, getting people to believe that if they pulled out of Canada, that they would have better times ahead of them.
But as the hour of the actual referendum vote was drawing nearer, do you think some people were getting cold feet when they started to think about the long-term consequences? Because this whole vote is not quite as simple as a yes or a no.
Absolutely. The public opinion polls showed large blocks of undecided voters going into the final weekend. Anywhere between 11 and 16% of those polled were undecided. And we spoke to one pollster the other day who said you can pretty much count on 2/3 of the undecided voting for no. They're the people most likely to, as you say, have cold feet and most likely not to go for radical change.
What is likely to happen in the aftermath? Because this does not mean an immediate separation politically from the rest of Canada. There are negotiations to be held and many complexities to be worked through. And what's likely to happen within the political structure of Quebec? Because, as you said, the federal opposition leader, Lucien Bouchard, the head of the Bloc Québécois, has really been the one that's come to the fore in the last days of the campaign.
Well, we spoke to Lucien Bouchard on Friday. He said that no matter how this turned out, he absolutely wanted Quebec at some time to find a way to separate from Canada, that this existence could no longer continue. Now, they have set for themselves a mandate of 50 plus 1% if the yeses should pull ahead. Anything less than that would not be great enough mandate to cause them to declare sovereignty. If they do win by that amount, then they are giving themselves a year to try to work out some alliances with Ottawa. If they can't work out the alliances, well, then they could simply declare sovereignty at any time. As far as the political parties are concerned, we spoke to one political science professor a little while ago who said if the yeses lose, there might be a simple case of them having to lick their political wounds, and then the next time Election Day comes around, the chips could fall where they may.
All right, just very quickly, Ed, I have one final question for you, and that's speaking of the political structure within Quebec itself. If the yes vote prevails, because Bouchard has been so prominent in the campaign, is it likely that he might take over the reins of power there? Because obviously there would be many questions about the future of the Bloc Québécois in Canada's parliament and whether that would even remain in that body.
Well, yes, certainly. He's come to the political fore here. He has a very rabid, if I can use that word, following, and chances are no matter what happens, he'll still be in pretty good shape. Ed Garston, CNN, reporting live from Montreal.
The Quebec controversy is triggering debate south of the border. The White House said today that if Quebec declares its independence, the North American Free Trade Agreement would not automatically be extended. The pact reduces trade barriers among the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. House Speaker Newt Gingrich also waded into the debate. The Georgia Republican says the separatist drive should serve as a warning to Americans about the divisiveness of bilingualism. Gingrich supports legislation now pending before Congress that would make English the official language of the United States. It took a Nevada jury less than an hour to decide Dow Chemical Company's
held down the Mischief on Mischief night. Several blazes were set, including a raging house fire in East Camden early this morning. Earlier, wood pallets were set afire in another neighborhood. But fire officials know it could have been much, much worse. Here's Chief Kevin Haley.
Very happy that both the citizens and the police have cooperated there. Everybody's assisted, coming together very well.
The volunteer effort is credited with holding a lid on trouble in Camden for 4 straight years now. The city, of course, made national news in 1991 when vandals set 128 fires on Mischief night. At least police say incidents since then have remained relatively small.
Philadelphia fire investigators are searching for the cause of a is unresolved. That's what experts are saying about yesterday's election in Quebec. A move to secede from the rest of Canada failed by a single percentage point, enough to defeat Quebec separatists at the polls, but not enough to dampen their spirits. Supporters of a united Canada celebrated in the streets of Montreal last night. Canada's Prime Minister Jean Chrétien shared their enthusiasm, but he also held out an olive branch to the other side.
Work together to bring about the necessary change to make sure that our country remains united. And in part, this includes the recognition of the distinct nature of Quebec society.
Chrétien plans a cabinet meeting today to discuss the referendum and how to keep Canada unified. Separatists accepted last night's result with disappointment but resolve. They say they'll resurrect the secession issues unless Canada addresses the concerns of French speakers.
In Washington, the House has warned the Clinton administration it will not support sending U.S. ground troops to Bosnia to support any peacekeeping mission. That resolution passed with riot police and vowed to fight on in the future. Good morning, America. I'm Joan London.
And I'm Forrest Sawyer. I'm sitting in for Charlie Gibson, who is out trick-or-treating. It is Tuesday, October 31st, and a very happy Halloween to you. Now, it could have spelled the biggest change in the map of North America in any of our lifetimes. It did not happen. In Canada and the U.S., millions of people are breathing a sigh of relief. Others are disappointed. The business community quite happy. It's been a jittery day yesterday as Quebec considered secession. A head reaction to the separatists' defeat.
Also, in some parts of the country, it is called Mischief Night, the night before Halloween, when harmless pranks are played for the fun of it. But in Detroit, it has been called Devil's Night, and there's been nothing funny about the yearly arson incidents that has set that city on edge. Well, last year, firefighters battled 182 arson fires, a 5-year high. Good Morning America's Bill Ritter joins us from Detroit today with a report on how thousands of volunteers helped turn the tide this year. Right now, we'll find out if the weather is turning any tides and becoming more winter-like with Spencer.
Well, the weather is turning rather scary on this Halloween, Joan, and in just a moment I will treat you to a rather tricky forecast. We'll take a look at the weather in places like Casper, Tombstone, and Salem coming up.
All right, also ahead, a jury's $14 million award to a woman who sued, saying she became ill from her silicone breast implants, and she will join us to tell her story. Plus, illusionist David Copperfield will absolutely wow you today. But first, Morton Dean has the news of the morning. Mort.
Good morning, Joan, and good morning, everyone. The vote was close, so close that while it's clear Quebec will stay part of Canada, the issue certainly has not been put to rest. The final tally, 50.6% saying no to secession, 49.4% voting yes. About 50,000 votes made the difference out of more than 4.5 million cast. ABC's Kevin Newman is in Montreal with the reaction.
For Quebec separatists, the defeat is a bitter one. Most French-speaking Quebecers voted yes to create their own country, but not enough for a democratic majority. So a night they hoped would be a celebration of nationhood became a night of anger and broken dreams. An embittered head of the independence campaign said money robbed them of their country, and the ethnic vote, a reference to English-speaking Quebecers and others who almost all voted against separation. Even at the jubilant winning headquarters, there was a realization that while a victory measured in tenths of a decimal point avoids a breakup, it also weakens the country. A country whose prime minister must now find a way to heal.
Let us continue building the country that has made us the envy of the world. We have work to do. Let us get on with the job.
But it's not likely to be business as usual here anytime soon. The separatists gained a lot of strength in this referendum campaign and have pledged to try again sooner than the rest of Canada thinks. Mort?
Well, as you mentioned, the anxieties and the differences remain. Kevin, when do you think that soon will occur? When will they try again? When can they try again?
They can try again really at any time. They'd have to change the referendum law here in Quebec, but that's not tough to do. Separatists form the government. Meanwhile, in Ottawa today, the Prime Minister and his cabinet are going to be meeting to try to figure out how they respond to this very divided province in what is a divided nation as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Newman in a chilly Montreal this morning. A warning from Congress to Bosnian peace negotiators and to President Clinton, the House. Last year, 182 fires. This year, ABC's Al Dale reports it's a different story.
Authorities won't announce official figures for Devil's Night arson until tomorrow, but indications are that Detroit's plan to combat the fire-setting tradition worked. The mayor credited the 30,000 volunteers mobilized to patrol neighborhoods to discourage arsonists.
I am pleased with all the volunteers that are out, and they're really making a big difference.
Long live the spirit of the Million-Man March!
The volunteer patrols included this group of several dozen men who had attended the recent Million Man March in Washington, D.C. They walked through neighborhoods that were hit hard last Devil's Night.
It looks like it's working, too.
Good, good. Well, I'm glad that we can be of a help to the police officers of this community.
While some teenagers were arrested for violating the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew and could face $100 fines, officers on the street said Detroit may have seen its last Devil's Night.
The devil is gone. We're not going to have that anymore in this city.
That's an optimistic view shared by many here who desperately want to end their city's Halloween horror story. Al Dale, ABC News, Detroit.
More on Devil's Night coming up later in this half hour of Good Morning America. Finally, sometimes you have to scramble when your dinner guests arrive.
Rainfall here. The big picture showing the rain extends on up the east coast here, quieting down out west, but we still have to watch out for the possibility of strong or severe weather. A tornado watch remains in effect for a good portion of South Carolina. Snowfall. Behind the system, it may be light, but it only takes a little bit to get it slick out there and very windy. More on WeatherScope is coming up next.
Presenting the